have been. The best customer. Good afternoon, everyone. This October 4th, 2022 meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now in order. Ms. Linder, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Buck.
Here.
Councilors Wynn.
Here.
Verdick. Here. Rapp.
Here.
Mans. Here. Mbu.
Yeah.
And Wendland.
Here.
Wonderful. We are all here. All right. Now, everyone, will you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we're going to start this evening with a proclamation. October is Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels Month. There is a need in the, yes, okay, yes, very good. We like clapping. There is a need to assure that no senior goes hungry or suffers from social isolation in Lake Oswego. And the need for home-delivered meals will only increase as nearly 44% of Lake Oswego's residents are aged 50 and older. 95% of seniors want to remain independent in their own homes as they age. The Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels program was started in Lake Oswego in 1972 by 7 people. The city memorialized its commitment to Meals on Wheels in 2004 by partnering with the nonprofit board Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels. The program currently engages 155 Lake Oswego volunteers in meaningful service to others, and there are more than 18,000 nutritionally balanced meals made from scratch served annually to senior and disabled Lake Oswego residents each year. So now would be it resolved that I, Joe Buck, Mayor of Lake Oswego, along with my colleagues here on the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Meals on Wheels Month in Lake Oswego. I urge our community to celebrate older adults as well as Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels program that supports healthy aging in Lake Oswego. That will be signed today, October 4th, and we do appreciate the work of all the volunteers in the Meals on Wheels program. I know there are many businesses, organizations in town partnering with Meals on Wheels to raise money for the program throughout the month of October, so it would be great if everyone could participate in those. Okay, we are going to now move on to public comment. And when it is your turn for public comment, I'll call you forward. You will have 3 minutes. We have the little timer up front there. If you could just be cognizant of the time so I don't have to interrupt you, that would be great. And we will start with Roger Martin. Please come forward. When you sit down, even though I've said your name, please say it again just for the record, but you don't have to give us your address or anything like that, and start talking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Roger Martin. I live at 1405 Cherry Crest Avenue in Lake Oswego, and I'm 63-year citizen here in Lake Oswego, and I am one of those senior citizens you were talking about. I'm interested in the golf course. I understand from a conversation with the city manager that you probably are going to go ahead. I urge you to do that. I'm disappointed in the way the golfers in this city have been treated overall as this whole project's developed. And I'm sorry to see a very adequate 18-hole, par 3 golf course go to waste this year. We could have watered it and we could have played it. We didn't. Please get it started again so we can stay online. I understand the problem of costs. I predicted when it was suggested that we would easily be able to build a good 9-hole course that was going to cost you more than you expected, and I'm right about that. But please proceed so we can get golf back in Lake Oswego. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Appreciate you being here. Next is Randy. I'm so sorry. I can't really read their last name, but
fine, thank you.
You will tell us.
Randy Smurl, live in the Lakewood neighborhood. So I had 2 things I just wanted to mention. One is the North Shore Bridge. The infamous North Shore Bridge. And I'm concerned about what it's going to look like when it's done rather than the process of engineering and constructing it. And I saw a couple of pictures on the website, which is, if I remember right, I'll read it, mechanically stabilized earth, which is basically blocks put together. And historically, the bridge has been iconic in Lake Oswego. I mean, there's wedding pictures taken there over the lake, Lakewood Bay. It's really been, and bridges are always an opportunity to develop something iconic in a community. I think we're kind of missing the boat personally, if that's what we go forth with the end state. So I don't have any comments on the engineering of it, just what it's going to look like when it's done. Second topic is Oswego Lake Country Club and the tree cutting that's proposed to go there, which is, I'm a member of Oswego Lake Country Club, by the way. And we have a pretty aggressive plan to cut old Douglas fir trees down, about maybe 50 or 60 of them that are probably 100, 150 years old. I remember when I was doing the remodel on my house in Lake Oswego, and I had 2 Douglas firs, and the process I had to go through to get permitting to actually even protect them, not cut them down. I wasn't allowed to do that, but to protect those. And then I see a process that seems very expedited at the country club to basically remove all these trees. And we have, yellow ribbons around, I think 70 or 80 trees now that are going to be cut down. In my understanding, there was some expedited process through the city council to accommodate that. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm trying to find out what that process is so that I can communicate it back to the members. A lot of members of the country club are not supportive of the removal of all those trees, just so you know. I don't know if you've done any surveys of the membership there, but it's a very controversial topic. So I'd like for you to consider whatever the process is or the permitting process is that underway. I'd like to understand it. Nobody seems to, at the club, to be able to communicate what the process is, what the permitting process is, what the status is with the city council or not. And it would be something that would be very helpful to understand so I could communicate it, back to the membership before all those trees are cut down, by the way. Because they're, believe me, it's an expedited process to cut them down over there. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gail Walmark. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Apologize for the mask, sort of, but still COVID careful. My name is Gail Walmark. I live on Kilkenny Road. I'm a golfer and a member of the LPGA Amateurs Portland Golf Club, and I serve on the City Council's Golf Course Advisory Council. I'm speaking in support of the Parks and Rec staff recommendation for the municipal golf course. In early 2020, as the decision about where to locate a new pool and rec center loomed, I was among those who led a brief but fierce effort to save every inch of the Muni's 40-acre property for golf. In the span of just a few weeks back then, we secured close to 400 signers on our petition to ensure public golf remained among the city's recreational offerings. I'd like to think our stirring of the golf community back then played some role in the Parks and Rec's development of a wonderful new plan, advised with professional expertise from the highly regarded golf course designer Dan Hickson, for a totally reimagined 9-hole course layout long enough to obtain a USGA rating so golfers could post their scores, and an improved and lengthened driving range. Once integrated into the pool rec center discussion, the plan for the new golf course was embraced by golf constituents. In fact, once comprehensive plans for the new center and golf course were approved, many of us worked to spread the word and build anticipation for the new course. It's squarely on our radar. In just a few weeks, it will have been 1 year since the old Muni closed, and we miss it. When I say we, I don't mean just those of us golfers who live in Lake Oswego. We also includes the many public play golfers who come from all around Greater Portland to play and learn and practice at our well-worn but beloved Muni, as well as the many new golfers who swarmed to the game during the pandemic. The original timeline for the course had its opening in the summer of 2023, but when permitting and other admin efforts pushed that back to 2024, we were disappointed, but our anticipation did not wane. We're here to demonstrate strong support for Parks and Rec's recommendation to move forward as quickly as possible now with the construction of the course and the improvements to the driving range. and to ask council members to please approve that recommendation today to ensure the promised modern, innovative Dan Hickson designed course remains in the city's near future. I assure you it will continue to be highly anticipated, especially because of Dan's involvement. And once it opens, we golfers will again turn out in droves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walmark. Appreciate those comments.
Perfect timing, too.
Yes. Deborah Wilkinson. Hi, Ms. Wilkinson. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Deborah Wilkinson, 17304 Marjorie Avenue. I have spoken about the golf course. I'm here supporting it. And each of you have said that you remain committed to golf in Lake Oswego. I'm just here to reiterate and hopefully have your commitment to golf today. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. And Meg Wilkinson. Hi, Ms. Wilkinson.
Hi there. Meg Wilkinson, 17304 Marjorie Avenue, and that was my sister speaking. But we've gone down a long road with this golf course. I remember years ago preceding a lot of you on the council when they're talking about selling part of the golf course and a lot of different things. But throughout the whole time, you guys have always been very supportive of an idea of the golf course in Lake Oswego. And so I'm really hopeful that you guys will support Parks and Rec's option 3, take off the maintenance building, rethink that, but go forward with the golf course. And that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ms. Wilkinson. We get folks from different sports, that come before the council. I have to say, the decorum of the golf crowd is just wonderful. So thank you all very much. Very quiet, very reserved. All right, thank you, everyone. Is there anyone else here that would like to provide public comment that didn't sign up to do so? Oh, okay. Please come on forward, sir. Just have a seat and tell us who you are.
Right. I am a member of Oswego Lake Country Club, and I am definitely against
And what is your name?
Harvey Gelfand, Gelfand.
Okay.
Now, I'm definitely against cutting any trees down, and the majority of the members that I've talked to are certainly against it. Some of these trees have been around for 100 years. It would just be a travesty or tragedy to cut them down.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Okay, with that, we are going to move into our first public hearing of the night. It is agenda item 6.1. This is resolution 22-33, a resolution of the City Council acting as the Lake Oswego Public Contracting Review Board pursuant to ORS 279A.060, adopting findings and approving CMGC solicitation procurement for WO 298, which is the Blue Heron 2 Trunk Sanitary Sewer Project. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Boone to review the hearing procedures with us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a public contracting policy decision within the discretion of the City Council, and the policy decision is discretionary. It must comply with ORS 279A.055 and OAR 137.049, 061, 610.3, and 690. The public hearing process will begin with a presentation by staff, then testimony will be received from the public. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, homeowner associations, government or government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations will be allowed up to 10 minutes. The time limits do not include time taken from questions from the council or responses to the questions. Does any council member need to declare a financial conflict of interest? No? No? Thank you. That's Mr. Mayor. You may proceed with the staff presentation.
Okay, and we have Mr. Stefan Broaddus here with us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. My name is Stefan Broaddus. I'm the Assistant City Engineer. And today I am seeking your approval to proceed with the Construction Manager General Contractor Delivery Approach for the Blue Heron Trunk Sewer Project. So the scope of this project is shown on the map to your right, and the limits are from Cardinal Drive at Bryant on the south end, to South Shore at Blue Heron on the north end. This project was identified in our wastewater master plan as needing to be replaced, and it includes 15 sewer mainline segments, 16 sewer manholes. This segment of the wastewater system serves 85 homes, and of those 85 homes, 36 of which have their laterals in the actual canal. So aside from those 36 laterals that are in Blue Heron Canal, there's quite a few other construction challenges that are present with this project. One notable one is the tight construction window. So we will be performing this project in alignment with the next scheduled lake drawdown, which is scheduled to occur between October and December of next year. So not only do we need construction to start in that window, we also need a very short duration to be adhered to as well. And there's quite a few other challenges that I have up on the board. The best way for us to mitigate these challenges is through the CMGC delivery process, which enables us to bring on the construction perspective earlier in the process, during the design phase of the project instead of after design has been finalized. In addition to getting that construction perspective on the team during design, the CMGC process also helps us be able to secure very scarce resources in advance of the construction phase, specifically equipment, labor, and materials, all at a time when those are harder to find than ever. So for those reasons, we are asking and we are recommending that we adopt Resolution 22-33 to deliver this project with the construction manager general contractor approach. And from there, we will proceed with final design of the project and towards construction, again, with the schedule being October of 2023 for the start time. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So the project will be, is scheduled to hopefully be completed by October of 2023?
Start October 23 in alignment with the drawdown and be completed by the time that the lake begins to fill back up.
Okay, so quite a bit. So in a year from now, we'll be starting this project?
Exactly. Starting the construction, yes.
Oh, I see. That's a lot of prep time for the, yeah. Have we used this, the CMGC contract method for a sewer project like this before?
Not in recent history, no. Not within the past few years. Our recent sewer projects have not had such a critical dependency on the construction window as this one, and that coupled with some recent design, the traditional design bid build approaches resulting in only one bid. We've really wanted to mitigate that constraint being on the back end of this project and move it forward in the schedule.
Right. And then how, what is the, do you have an estimate of what the construction timeline will be once you commence?
Well, the construction timeline for the canal work will consist of the drawdown window. And then as you saw in the map, there is some upland components to this, specifically on Cardinal Drive. And so that work could proceed afterwards, has much less of critical constraint on the timeline.
Okay. Councilor Raff.
Two things. One, Mr. Boone, I do need to disclose that the sewer line, my house is served by the sewer line.
You'll be using the sewer.
I will be using the sewer, but I have no conflict of interest here, obviously. But one thing to be aware of, because I was living on the canal during the last drawdown, and one thing I think you should just build into your plans is the fact that if it's a heavy rain year, that window gets very short, a lot shorter. So just remember seeing a lot of people rebuilding boathouses and people having to build dams, and because we had a rainy winter. So just kind of build some contingency plans in with that. And then what is the risk if we do not proceed with this project?
The risk, so this project's identified in our master plan for reaching the end of its useful life. So as you would, if you were to not proceed with this project, the risk that you would run into would be structural failure of the pipe, which could result into overflows into the canal and thus major environmental issues, yes.
Yeah, yeah, because what I know already is there's a lot of those laterals that are already broken. And so, but anyway, thank you for doing this. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good questions. Councilor Mance?
Thank you. My question evolves around supply chain issues that we've encountered over the past 2 years, and there's some predictions that that isn't going to be resolved within 5 years. Do you think that using the CNGC method will help to mitigate some of the problems that we've encountered on other projects?
I do. This is a great project for this delivery approach because of the constraint with the schedule. And based on our current schedule, if we were to do a traditional design bid build, by the time we were to have the contractor under contract, there may not be enough time, considering the recent lead times that we've seen on materials, there may not be enough time to get that contractor under contract for them to then order the materials. They may get the materials after the drawdown, after the lake is already, and the canal is already back up. So we're essentially moving that task earlier in the schedule is one of the biggest objectives of going to this delivery method, is to remove or to build in more available lead time for material purchasing.
So it provides certainty to a degree.
It provides a reduced risk that material will give us essentially derail the project schedule and force us to either dewater outside of our routine dewatering schedules, or wait 3 more years for the next for the next lake down scenario.
I'll restate, it provides reduced risk.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Mance. Councilor Wendland?
Thanks for the report. Obviously, we have to do this. There's not a financial part segment to this because of the differing methodology that we're using to do the construction. So when do we get the financial part? I mean, and is there a somewhat inside number that you're looking at that we have the funds available?
We have the funds available. The approach from here, if approved, would be to craft a request for proposals to select the most qualified firm in order to be our CMGC. We would then enter into a relatively small contract that would basically reimburse them for their time during the design phase for that construction perspective. And then at the point in which the project is advanced far enough, usually around 90%, the contractor can give us what's typically called their GMP, their guaranteed maximum price, at which point we can enter in and modify that relatively minor contract to include the actual construction of the project, which will be much larger than that. So that's the general approach. So we would enter into the construction value probably middle of next year once the plans are finalized.
And that would come before us again?
Exactly, yes,
okay.
To execute that contract.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wendland. Councilor Nguyen?
Thanks for providing that report. Councilor Nguyen had asked, one of my questions was about the financial part, but the other thing I wanted to ask about is that, so with this mechanism using the CMGC procurement method, we'd spent some time last year kind of looking at our procurement processes and trying to build in some components to make a more conscious effort about creating opportunities and actually making a more conscious decision also on thinking about how do we include more local business, women-owned business, minority-owned business. With this, I'm hoping that the answer is yes, but I'd love to still, although we're kind of on a different type of procurement mechanism, that we still make an effort to be able to reach out to firms that might be able to provide some, at least some part of the services that is required part of this project?
Sure thing. So as I mentioned in the previous response, the next step, if this is approved, would then be to craft a request for proposals to find the most qualified firm. One of our scoring components to that is the COVID component to it, and that's typically 10% of the overall score is that COVID component of it, and that includes a range of points, whether the firm themselves are COVID certified, they've used COVID certified subcontractors in the past, and or they plan to use COVID certified subcontractors on this project. So we will have that component available to us, and we will utilize it. And then the other thing that this will utilize is the low bid is sometimes a barrier for smaller companies. And so with a request for proposals like we're doing that's qualifications based, it does not include price in a component of when we're evaluating who's the most qualified.
We're very pleased to hear that. And one last piece, you're going to, as part of the RFP, you'll do some sort of outreach. Will there'll be time to have like a pre-bid type of outreach to potential bidders? Now that we're in a kind of a hopefully post-COVID, it makes it easy for more COVID certified firms to come in person and learn about the project.
Sure, yes, we will have a pre-bid. We typically do non-mandatory pre-bid conference for those that are interested in hearing more about the project.
Great. Thanks, Councilor Wynn, for those good questions. Okay. All right, no other questions? Okay, in that case, we're going to open the public hearing here. Thank you, Mr. Broadus, for the presentation. And I will ask if there is anyone, I don't have any slips. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on this trunk project? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to make a motion to adopt this resolution.
Move to adopt resolution 2233, adopting findings and approving a CMGC solicitation procurement for WO 298 Blue Heron 2 Trunk Sanitary Sewer Project.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Boop. Councilor Rapp with the second. All right, is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks for the good work. Our next hearing, we are considering two ordinances. Ordinance 2898, which is an ordinance annexing to the city of Lake Oswego 2 parcels consisting of 5.01 acres at 13570 and 13580 Goodall Road, declaring city of Lake Oswego zoning of R15, resource protection and habitat benefit area pursuant to LOC 50.01.004.5.A-C, and removing the territory from certain districts. And we have ordinance 2899, which is an ordinance of the City Council here, amending the Lake Oswego Comprehensive Plan Map and Sensitive Lands Atlas to designate approximately 2.9 acres of Resource Protection Overlay District on 2 parcels, the same to 13570 and 13580 Goodall Road, and adopting findings. We will start with a review of the quasi-judicial hearing procedure by Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as the council knows, this is a quasi-judicial annexation that has a land use component to it, so that's somewhat of a lengthy description. And to that end, I would ask, or I will go over the hearing procedures, and that will similarly apply to the next item, 6.3, which is an ordinance annexing property at 6058 Seville Avenue and property at 16085 Inverurie Road. So if you're here for any of those, I would ask you to listen up, that way I won't repeat the hearing procedure every time for those. Okay. The public hearing process will first begin with a presentation by staff and then testimony by the applicant up to 20 minutes. Then testimony by parties in support of the application, followed by testimony by parties opposed to the application, and then testimony by those neither for nor against the application. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Any person in attendance may cede his or her time for testimony to another person, except to the applicant, but in no case shall any person's testimony be increased to greater than 10 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, homeowner associations, government or government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations will be allowed up to 10 minutes. Those time limits do not include time spent responding to questions from the council. Testimony by attorneys, representatives, and witnesses on behalf of or which are part of the presentation by a person shall be counted within that person's time limit. It is assumed that persons are testifying on their own behalf unless they expressly identify the recognized neighborhood association, homeowner association, government or government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization they are representing. After testimony in favor, opposed, and neither for nor against, then would be the applicant's rebuttal up to 5 minutes. Following that would be the council's deliberation, including a statement to the applicant by the council of any proposed conditions of approval different than contained in the staff report, and the applicant's response to those conditions of approval. As stated in the public notice, the deadline for submission of written materials was noon today. No written materials may be submitted to the council tonight. Any person may request an opportunity to present additional evidence by requesting a continuation of the public hearing. The land use component of the annexation request is to be considered based upon the applicable criteria and standards. The staff report lists the criteria in the comprehensive plan, state statutes and rules, and the community development code that staff identified as applicable to the request. It was available online and from the planning department. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria. We ask that you identify to the council the criteria or standards you're addressing so the council may consider your testimony in relation to those criteria or standards. If you do not identify the criteria or standards you're addressing, the council is not obliged to guess which standards or criteria you're testifying about and may not consider your testimony in its decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes raising the issue to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise any constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with specificity to allow the council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Now, at this point, for this hearing, I would ask the council members to please declare if you had any ex parte contacts, including a site visit, if you have any bias on the application, and if you have any financial conflicts of interest.
None.
No.
Is there any challenge to a councilor's right to consider the application? No, thank you. You may proceed with the staff report, Associate Planner Paul Espy.
Thank you. Mayor Buck, members of the council, good afternoon. We have before us this afternoon 5 properties being considered for annexation. 2 of them, 4774 Oakridge Road and 13581 Fielding Road, are being processed as expedited annexations and are expected to be approved through the consent agenda. I won't discuss these this evening unless there's any specific questions about those particular projects. The annexation of 13570 and 13580 Goodall Road is being processed as a public hearing and also has a proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan map and sensitive lands atlas through the quasi-judicial land use review process to designate approximately 2.9 acres of resource protection overlay. Findings for the proposed map amendment have also been prepared and are available for your signature if we are able to approve that, and there is no additional public testimony on that particular item this afternoon. The annexation of the properties at 6058 Seville Avenue and 16085 Inverurie Road will also be reviewed through the public hearing process. And I can present these items at the same time, and then we can open up the public hearings for those items separately. This property is located, the Goodall Road property is located on the east side of Goodall Road in the Forest Highlands neighborhood. The light blue shaded areas that you see on the map here represent the resource protection boundaries, and the green shaded areas represent the habitat benefit area, or HBA. You can see those as the light green areas there. And the areas with the red hatching depict the RP resources that were previously delineated through a procedure provided by the Sensitive Lands Code as a part of a previous land use application. You can see all of that depicted down below and across Goodall Road. When the Sensitive Lands Map was amended in 2015, some of the riparian buffers were expanded from a minimum of 30 or 25 feet for a Class 1 or Class 2 stream to a minimum of 50 feet to offset the removal of the RC districts in this area. These areas are designated with a dark blue line. That 50-foot buffer is designated with a dark blue line along this stream corridor here. The HBA designations do not limit development and do not necessarily create a conflict because the HBA development restrictions are voluntary. Property owner proposing a land division is not required to apply the HBA development restrictions unless the owner applies for HBA district incentives. So that's just a kind of an overall background of how the sensitive lands ordinance works for those of you that do not know. At their hearings on June 13th and June 27th, the Planning Commission considered and recommended approval of the proposed map amendments. And this is a request initiated by the city to designate approximately 2.9 acres of resource protection overlay on the two parcels. The proposed RC district is Class 1 wetland, and protected riparian area will be added to either side of the existing RP district. The zoning overlay will be effective upon annexation, if approved. And this slide here shows the existing sensitive lands map as we see it on the zoning map today. This map shows the requested sensitive lands amendment in attachment A of draft ordinance 2899. When evidence indicates that a resource that potentially qualifies for an RP or RC district designation exists on the property to be annexed by the city may conduct an economic, social, environmental, and energy, or ESEE analysis, and determine if the overlay should be designated. In previous land use cases, the Planning Commission has found that the city could not arbitrarily decide whether or not they were going to designate that resource, or conduct the EC analysis. And so it's, if the word may in there, it doesn't mean that you can either do it or not do it. It's really based on sound evidence of the presence of a resource. And if there is sound evidence that the resource is present, then it's almost a shall, but not quite. But you really do have to do the EC analysis for that particular resource. The Planning Commission staff report, supplemental memo, and findings provide the information necessary for the approval of the proposed RP resource overlay. I won't go into too much detail there. I trust that you have gone through that material that was approved at the Planning Commission level. The draft City Council findings, attachment B to Exhibit A 1.1 for the proposed map amendment are also attached. And the existing habitat benefit overlays in the comprehensive plan and sensitive lands atlas will also be designated on the zoning map upon annexation. Thus, the two actions in the application are to designate the new RP district by adopting Ordinance 2899, and then applying both the zoning and the newly minted RP designations by adopting Ordinance 2898 for the annexation. So getting into the annexation of the Goodall Road properties, this is under Clackamas County's jurisdiction and is zoned low-density residential. It is designated R15, low-density residential on the City of Lake Oswego's comprehensive plan map, and will be zoned R15 upon annexation. Of course, the RP overlay will also be designated as stated previously. Sanitary sewer service is available from the City of Lake Oswego 10-inch collection line in Goodall Road. Water is available from a city 8-inch water main in Goodall Road. And the closest fire hydrants are located near the northwest and southwest corners of the property east of Goodall Road. Now, that concludes the presentation for the Goodall Road property. I can either move forward with the rest of the annexations this evening or this afternoon, or you can stop and open the public hearing and have deliberations for this particular item.
Why don't we see if anyone has any questions on
Okay.
this particular, if anyone has any questions on this particular annexation. Mr. Espy, can you just, when we talk about amending the sensitive lands atlas, we're just talking in the 2.9 acres?
Right.
Okay, is on the map the blue shaded area, not the green shaded HBA area?
That's correct. The HBA area is already designated on the comprehensive plan, and that would just be applied to the property upon annexation, similarly to the zoning designations that are already preordained.
Okay, and when we talk about the development potential in the staff report, when we look at this lot, is the development potential then all along the frontage of Goodall Road, given this overlay?
Roughly, yes. I would say that the clear areas in the front of Goodall Road, along the frontage of Goodall Road would be available, and also the HBA areas would be available for development as well.
In the rear?
In the rear.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Windland?
That was basically my question, but so can you cross over the blue area to get to the green area?
There can be application processes available for the applicant to provide, limited access to the rear of the property, yes.
Teleports, or, I mean,
The sensitive lands, the sensitive lands ordinance allows for crossings of the wetland area in limited areas.
if they did I guess I'm asking, can they put a house back there with a driveway that has a bridge?
Correct.
Drawbridge.
Okay, so that would be like a drawbridge, okay.
Yes.
So,
Well, it wouldn't be a drawbridge, but it would be a culvert that would be compatible with the existing system out there, yeah.
like $1 million culvert, sort of to make sure all the,
I'm not sure how much it would cost, but.
I'm sure it would cost a lot. Thank you.
Councilor Wu?
I think it was my question, but Mr. Espy, how do we design, it's always a problem with me, how do we design a class 1 and a class 2 stream? Like, who make the designation? Is it the city, or does it come from FEMA, or?
So that was based on previous wetland studies that we have done to establish citywide all of the natural resources and the natural resource designations throughout the entire city. And so based on the values of the wetland and the overall shape that it's in, and there's a variety of different criteria that the wetland scientist uses to determine if it's a class 1 or class 2, and based on those attributes, they assign that rating.
And in this case also, about the buffer, what would it be from the riparian zone if they were to build anything there?
So for this particular designation, the buffer would correspond with a 50-foot buffer that I previously discussed, and also is corresponding to this striped area here that you see in this exhibit for the ordinance.
Thank you.
Just to your question, there's no construction setback
Yes.
from the riparian boundary, unlike for the stream corridor, there is a construction setback.
That's what I was.
That's true. Yeah, there's a 10-foot construction setback for the riparian boundary. Yep.
So where does the setback begin?
Well,
Right up to the edge?
Right at the
Oh,
edge.
just to
Right
the
at the
edge?
edge,
Yeah, gotcha, okay. Yeah, thank you. Councilor Mans?
If someone were to build a bridge, say, and want to develop the habitat benefit area, would they be able to create 2 lots or more out of that habitat benefit area? I don't see that there are 2 separate lots now, but.
Yeah, the last pre-app that I looked at had a conceptual plan that I provided, I believe, for about 8 or 9 lots for the entire site. And that included lots that could be put on the HBA area.
Okay, so I guess my question is, how many lots could be put within the habitat benefit area?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how many lots in the habitat benefit area, but throughout the entire site,
Right.
based on what I saw the consultant come up with, it was about 8 to 9 lots.
8 to 9
For
lots.
the
So that
entire
wouldn't
site.
be considered a flag lot off of 60 and, I'm sorry, not 60, 70 and 80?
It's possible that we may need to rely on flag lot standards to establish some of the parcels back there.
So that then could limit that particular number depending on
Possibly.
how they go about developing that. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, is everyone okay if Mr. Espy goes through the other staff reports and then we do the hearings? Is that good? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Espy,
All
thank you.
right, sounds good. Okay, so 6058 Seville Avenue is located on the south side of Seville Avenue and the west side of Millen Avenue in the Forest Highlands neighborhood. This property is currently under Clackamas County's jurisdiction and zoned low-density residential R10. It's designated R7.5 medium-density residential on the City of Lake Oswego Comprehensive Plan Map and will be zoned R7.5 upon annexation. Sanitary sewer service can be made available from an existing 8-inch public sanitary sewer main that currently ends with the manhole in Mellon Avenue, approximately 105 feet south of the site. And then water is available from a 6-inch Lake Grove Water District line in Mellon Avenue and Seville Avenue along the site frontages. This property will remain in the LGWD and will continue to be an LGWD customer. Okay, and so for 16085 Inverurie Road, these properties are located on the west side of Inverurie Road in the Lake Forest neighborhood. On October 3rd, staff received comments in opposition from David Brown at 16105 Inverurie Road, and his email was entered in as Exhibit F200 into the record. He had concerns regarding Lake Oswego's overall annexation policy and the incremental approach to annexation, impacts and costs from future development of the property as they relate to road improvement, access easement, the access easement to 16105 Inverurie Road, tree removal, adequacy of mass transit, sewer extension leading to more development and increased density, overall cost of annexation to adjacent residences as it relates to sewer extension leading to more development and increased density, increased property taxes, and then he was also concerned about the property possibly not being contiguous to the city boundary. He also raised the issue of annexing property resulting in the neighborhood having to absorb impacts from meeting the city's housing goals and zoning density requirements. Staff's response, I've got a summary of what he said and how I responded here. The construction impacts as they relate to traffic and road improvements, the access easements to 16105 Inverurie Road, tree removal and other infrastructure costs would be addressed at the time of the future development review of the property and the construction. So during the subdivision analysis, I think is when those things are really looked at. Impacts related to the future development of the property are beyond the scope of the annexation application this afternoon. With regards to annexation policy and sewer costs, the city's current policy is a friendly annexation policy. Annexation applications for individual homeowners are on a voluntary basis. Annexations are often required because of the need to switch from septic tank to sanitary sewer systems. And in this case, the owners wish to connect to sewer and develop the property. Property owner would be responsible for all of the costs that were incurred for sewer and any other infrastructure that they would need to put in to support any future development of that property. So if your septic system fails and the sanitary system is legal and physically available, it is true that you would need to connect if you're within 300 feet of the property. And, but homes can remain on their septic systems as long as they're still functioning. Annexation to the city would result in a property tax increase of approximately 10%, give or take, depending upon the valuation of that particular property. The comprehensive plan map's residential land use designations are based on the housing needs analysis, and these designations map the corresponding zoning map designations in the urban services boundary identified in the comprehensive plan. These housing densities are set and provide for regional housing needs as outlined in the findings under Goal 10 in Attachment B. And with regards to the property being contiguous to the city boundary, the section of Inverurie Road along the property frontage is being annexed to the city and will extend to the city boundary at the southern property line of 16034 Inverurie Road, allowing the property to be contiguous by a small cherry stem through Inverurie Road. The maintenance jurisdiction and permitting authority of this section of roadway would remain with Clackamas County until more of Inverurie Road was annexed, and then we would take over the maintenance jurisdiction after a certain time when that occurs. The 2 additional people added as a result of this annexation will only have a minimal impact on the TriMet mass transit. And finally, the incorrect reference to Seville Avenue on page 10 of the annexation is a typo and should instead refer to Inverurie Road. I apologize. With regards to the easement, they state that the easement rights are not protected by the annexation and that past and future maintenance and improvement costs they have incurred for this easement are not addressed as a part of this analysis. Again, staff finds that the applicants and the 2 abutting properties to the south were conducted as a civil agreement between the parties and are not within the scope of this annexation application. Issues related to the property access and easements would be addressed between the private parties or as a part of the future land use or subdivision of the property. These properties are currently under Clackamas County's jurisdiction and are zoned low-density residential R10. They will be designated R7.5 low-density residential on the City of Lake Oswego's comprehensive plan map and will be zoned R7.5 upon annexation. Sewer and water service. They are available from an existing 8-inch public sanitary line. Water is available from a Lake Road Water District line in Inverurie Road. And these properties will also remain in the Lake Grove Water District. Staff finds that these properties are within the urban services boundary and public services can be provided in a timely, orderly, and efficient manner. And staff finds that the proposed annexation and sensitive lands map amendment are timely and recommend approval for all of the proposed actions this afternoon. Any questions?
Mr. Espy, just so I understand that on this Inverurie Road annexation, so that this property to the rear, the property owner we heard from at 16105 there, so this is essentially they have some kind of a driveway. This is how they access their home is via this other property, and that's something they've worked out. Do they have a private easement type thing?
It appears that way, that they would have had either, and I haven't seen copies of the easements necessarily, so it was either through a handshake agreement or it was through, a recorded easement.
I'm just kind of curious, how common is it that you have this kind of like a landlocked?
This is very uncommon.
Oh, yeah, that's trouble.
Yeah, we don't, yeah.
Yeah. I know, it's not funny for them, but.
I would just add, of course, that any annexation is not going to affect the property rights of the individuals.
Right. It's just, unusual.
No, it's a transfer of jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. It's just a transfer of jurisdiction from the county to the city. So it affects no legal rights of the parties.
Interesting.
Yeah, we will inherit the issues and then we will have to ferret them out at the land use process.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Any of the annexations? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Espy. Mm-hmm. We'll go ahead and we're going to open the public hearing on the first 2 ordinances, Ordinance 2898 and 2899. Those are the Goodall Road properties. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on that annexation and the accompanying land use around the comprehensive plan? Okay, so seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt?
Mr. Mayor, before you do that,
I'm sorry.
Let me just correct one thing I said to Councilor Mabouk. For the RP district, there is a construction setback, whether it's a stream corridor or a wetland. I was mistaken on that. It's 10 feet for new structures, parking areas, active use, recreation facilities, streets and driveways, and then 3 feet for accessory structures, decks, and similar outdoor facilities. So there is a bit of a construction setback, because otherwise you would be constructing into the resource, sorry.
Okay, makes sense. Okay.
So can I move to enact ordinance 2907?
No, well, hold on. No, that's the wrong ordinance. It's
At the
2898
inverness?
And
2899,
2898.
2898 and 2899 together.
2898, 2899.
Oh, that's right, sorry. Move to enact ordinance 2898 and 2899.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Mann, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Next, we will open the public hearing on ordinance 2906. This is the 6058 Seville Avenue. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on this annexation?
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Mr. Mayor, before you do that, is there anybody here for the 6058 Seville Avenue who did not hear my hearing process? Don't need to go through that. Does the council need to declare any ex parte contacts, financial conflicts of interest or bias?
No.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boone. All right, so we're going to close the public hearing on ordinance 2906, and we'll entertain a motion for its adoption.
Move to enact ordinance 2906.
Second.
Okay, thank you both. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. And next, we will move to ordinance 2907. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, is there anybody here for 16085 Inverurie Road who did not hear my land use hearings process? Seeing none, does the council need to declare any ex parte contacts, bias, or financial conflicts of interest?
No.
Hearing none, you may proceed, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boone. Okay, we will open the public hearing on ordinance 2907. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on this annexation? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2907.
Move to enact ordinance 2907.
Councilwoman. Oh. Oh, yes. Oh, you'd like to testify? Oh, okay. Well, yes, let's,
We'll reopen the public
we're
hearing.
going to reopen the public hearing.
For testimony?
We're going to reopen. And please have a seat and give us your name and.
It will be quick.
And
So I know this is not an issue of future
what is your name?
development. Sorry, Haley Carlston,
Haley Carlson. Okay, do we need an
yes.
address for, maybe later you can give it to.
16005 Inverurie. So it's not an issue of future development, but beginning with the end in mind, the purpose of annexing these properties for the road to be part of the city of Lake Oswego and possible future development. My concern is with the rain runoff, and if that road were to become part of the city of Lake Oswego instead of its current Clackamas County, and to pave it, it would trigger the over 1,000 square feet of pavement. The road you saw, the cherry stem, I believe you called it, is exactly the 20 feet required for emergency vehicles from property line to property line with no wiggle room. So if that were to be paved, that would trigger the need for runoff infrastructure to be in place. There is none anywhere on Inverurie Road for it to tie into. The closest would be Bonaire, 2 streets over. And I would like to note, it's not seen in the picture, but just 7 property parcels away is designated wetlands. So I feel it's already in a very special area for runoff. We have a French drain running the entirety of our property. It still does get very boggy. So I would just like the council to please take that into consideration, the proximity to a wetlands and the implications of paving roads and adding urban structures in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Just rest assured, I don't think that road's getting paved anytime soon. So I don't mean that to be a bad thing, but okay. All right, anyone else to testify Okay, I'm going to reclose.
All right,
hearing.
and then before the council votes on that, prior to closing a public hearing, the person may request an opportunity to present additional evidence. The request is made, the public hearing will be continued to a date certain, not less than 7 days later. Or record will remain open for these 7 days to enable additional written evidence and testimony to be submitted. Council would establish the period for any rebuttal written evidence. Is there any such request? No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proceed to deliberation.
Okay, do we need to adopt the findings now at a later date because of the, or?
That'd probably be a good idea. Why don't we do that?
Okay, at the next, all right, so when is our next meeting? In my little calendar. October 18th, okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that we enact ordinance 2907 and direct staff to return with final, findings and final adoption on October 18th, 2022.
Yes, you're tentatively approving.
Tentatively approving to return with findings. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. 2907, that's right. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Espy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We are now going to move on to the consent agenda, and just bear with me, we have a couple ordinances on here, and with the ordinances, we have to read the full title. So I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda, which includes items 7.1, which is ordinance 2904, an ordinance annexing to the city of Lake Oswego one parcel consisting of 0.29 acres at 4774 Oakridge Road, declaring city of Lake Oswego zoning pursuant to LOC 50.01.0045.5.a-C, and removing the territory from certain districts AN 22-0007. And item 7.2, ordinance 2905, an ordinance annexing to the city of Lake Oswego one parcel consisting of 0.41 acres at 13581 Fielding Road, declaring city of Lake Oswego zoning pursuant to LOC 50.01.004.5.a-C, and removing the territory from certain districts, that's AN 22-0008. Also, item 7.3, which is resolution 22-34, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake Oswego authorizing the city manager to sign an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County to support an event for Indigenous Peoples Day. And item 7.4, which is resolution 22-30, a resolution of the Lake Oswego City Council creating an ad hoc housing production strategy task force, and the council members approving the mayor's appointments to that ad hoc housing production strategy task force. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you both.
Mr. Mayor, before you vote on that, I'm sorry. There was a typographical error in the reference to an LOC in the two ordinances, so let me just put that into the record.
Okay.
Rather than LOC 50.01.0045.5.A through C, it's actually 50.01.004.5 A through C.
All right, we're missing a decimal one spot. Good catch.
There's an extra 5
Good catch.
in there.
I know. Wow. It's the extra gold star there. Thank you, Mr. Boone. Thank you, Mr. Boone. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Now for the city councilors' approval, we have item 9.1, which is a resolution 22-35. This is a resolution of the city councilors approving appointments to the library advisory board. These are a couple of youth appointments. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt these?
Move to adopt resolution 2235.
Second. Oh, sorry. Someone else can
okay.
go.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, that motion passes 6-0, and we will welcome newly appointed youth advisors Genevieve Nguyen and alternate Allison Corcola. That's right. It's very good. What's that? Oh, yes. Yes, we're going to, next, yes, we will have a study session. I think that's a great idea. We're going to be in recess for a few minutes.
Is it 10-1 after?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we are back in order, and we are moving on to our first study session, first and only study session on the municipal golf course. And we welcome Director Parks and Recreation Director Ivan Anderholm to give us an update on the municipal golf course.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm here to talk to you about an update on the municipal golf course renovation project. And I'm here to discuss and gain some direction from City Council with the intent of coming back to City Council at your next meeting based on the direction that you give the department. As you're aware, the municipal golf course renovation is a project that will make room for the Lake Oswego Recreation and Aquatic Center on the front portion of the property, but then we'll reconfigure the golf course from an 18-hole par 3 course into a 9-hole executive course with approximately 1,600 yards of length, which will enable it to be a handicap eligible course. In addition to that is an increase in the size of the driving range, improvements to the landing surface, and increase in the height, while also improving the drainage, which we do have drainage issues where right now water sheets off of the course to neighboring properties to the north of the property. The third component of the project is building a new maintenance facility for the golf course, primarily a place for us to keep our equipment and our supplies that we use on the golf course. We awarded a design build contract in December of 2020 to Milroy Golf Systems out of Forest Grove, Oregon. They're a company with an extensive experience in building golf courses, both privately and for municipalities. As we move through the process of land use, engineering, and design of the course and public outreach to our community and our golf community, we moved through that process, and as we got into that process, we moved through what we consider phase 1 of the design build. Phase 1 consists of design, engineering, and the land use process for the course for all 3 of the components. And we came to a point in April of this year where we were into land use process. Land use process is complete. We did receive approval of that August 15th of this year from the Development Review Commission. But in April, we received our first real cost estimate moving into the construction phase. When we received that estimate, to speak very bluntly, we were shocked at what the cost was. The contract was awarded in 2020 at about $3.3 million for all aspects of the project, including the design, engineering, land use, and building of the project. At that time, we received a building estimate, phase 2 estimate, that would have put the cost at about $6.7 million for the project. At that point, the department worked both with our contractor that was on board, our design team, but then also internally to look at that cost estimate and estimate if it was in fact in line or if it was out of line with what we were expecting. So what I want to do is I want to go through a short presentation, and then I'll move on to the point of where we're at with the project and what the department's recommendation and what we're seeking from council. Sorry about the formatting on my presentation. I'm going to go through kind of the project background, which I did, the purpose, the project overview, the design, and then ultimately the cost. To refresh everyone's memory, or their project overview is to renovate the driving range, build the new maintenance facility, and replace the existing 18-hole with a 9-hole executive course. The overview of the site, you can see here, the main thing that I want to point out on the overview of the site is that if you look in the upper right-hand side where the cursor is moving, is you'll see an extended driving range. And then also I will highlight the white portion within the golf course itself, which is something that we're not afforded currently in the design of the 18-hole course. And those are really spaces that are outside the fairway. So those are actually space between where people are going to be hitting the ball. It's going to be a much better spaced, safer course for everybody to play. Renovating the driving range. As I mentioned earlier, the renovation of the driving range is taking the existing driving range, which is about 208 yards long. The fencing at the far and the north end, where you can see houses to the left on this, just left of the red line, is approximately 50 feet high, and then along the sides is approximately 65 feet high. There is regular, even with our clientele, there are regular occasions where people do exceed the height and the distance of the fence, even without hitting a driver, hitting their long irons and even some of their fairway woods. The new proposed driving range will be lengthened by about 50 yards. The end height of the fence will be 75 feet long, and the sides will remain at 65 feet long. The main thing on this is its containment. It will contain more golf balls from going off of the property onto private residences and everywhere. The thing I do want to note too, and we'll get into this, I have a slide on it, is we are also going to be moving the drainage swell that currently collects stormwater and directs it towards Lost Dog Creek into an outlet into Lost Dog Creek. We're going to be moving that approximately 70 yards to the north, which means it will be capturing more runoff, sheeting runoff from the range, and will be directing it to the stream instead of into people's backyards. This is the grading and stormwater management. As you can see, this blue line right here is the existing north end of the range, and you can see where the swells are. It pipes in, and then there's a piping right after the existing fence that goes over to Lost Dog Creek. The new containment will have a bermed north end, and then the storm runoff will run pretty much in the same location to the existing storm, but will capture more water. The other feature of this is that we're building a berm along the north end of the property. We are doing, for our tree removal, we're doing mitigation in that area as well to provide area. And then behind hole number 1 here, we are installing a 200-foot long by 30-foot high ball protection fence for those people that might hit their second ball onto the first green and overhit it, to offer even further protection from balls for the houses to the north of the property. Second component of the project is to build a new maintenance facility. The need for the new maintenance facility is that our existing maintenance facility is actually in the footprint of what will be the new aquatic center and parking lot. So we do need a maintenance facility there. For the golf course maintenance, we have a combination of 3 different mowers that we need that are our rough, our fairway, and our green mowers. We have a 4th and actually a 5th mower. We have a apron mower, which is an intermediate mower, and then we also have what we call a Ventrac, which is a wet conditions mower. If you live around some of our neighborhood parks, you might have seen them. They have like 8 wheels and they look like an off-road vehicle, but they do allow us to not damage the turf and to perform grass cutting when we need to do it. The new maintenance facility itself is modest in design. It's about a 3,000 square foot building. It is conceived as a metal building, pre-engineered metal building. There are parking spaces within the yard itself, which are for our maintenance personnel, not only our permanent, but our seasonal maintenance personnel. Other features is off of one end, we have an area that's an open area where we can store golf carts along with power. Next to the parking, you'll see a large above-ground tank. That's actually a dual fuel tank, which we currently have 2 underground fiberglass vessels, one for diesel and one for gasoline. Not only for use for the golf course itself, but we also use that to fuel our equipment that's housed at Azalea and then our farm equipment at Lusher Farm. And then as a secondary benefit, it's also a remote fueling station in case of an emergency situation. From a standpoint of being resilient, it is another fueling station that can be accessed. Other components of this yard itself are storage bins, which would be on the west end, and then in the far corner, though it doesn't show a roof here, is basically a grass clipping decanting facility so that we can wash off our mowers and separate the solids from the liquids, which is a requirement per DEQ. Other than that, it's a pretty basic facility. Here's an overhead view, pretty much the same. To kind of give you an idea, it's a little bit under 3,000 square feet of combined space. There's a barn, a shop area that is climate controlled, so it has heat and is insulated, and then an area for our staff for computers, break area, and then also a modest restroom with a shower. These employees are the employees that probably touch more pesticide herbicide than any other employees in the Parks Department because of the requirements of the short grass in both the greens and in the tee boxes. So they do routinely rinse themselves off at work, during work. Again, modest. We're talking about a metal building, not anything too elaborate. Moving on to the golf course itself. The golf course layout and design is designed by Dan Hickson, who's on our design team. He's a renowned golf designer, a Portland native. He has done courses throughout the state of Oregon and throughout the Northwest and internationally. He was in 2020, he was recognized as one of the top 5 design innovators in the world by Golf Magazine. So he lives about 5 blocks away from the course here in Lake Oswego. You'll see that the proposed scorecard is about 1,600 yards, which enables it to be a handicap course. Other features within the golf course, I want to point out, you'll see a large area that says PG, and then you'll see a smaller area. Putting green itself is about a 30,000 square foot putting green. To give you an idea, our largest green that we have on the course currently is hole 12, which is up in the northwest corner, is about 12,000 square feet. The golf course itself, from an operational standpoint, will operate much like it does now as a learning center and a place for young, old players, and all players in between to come and hone their skills. The other thing that is an upgrade from the current, you'll see there are some tan marks throughout this, is that we do have a number of bunkers that will be placed and maintained on the course to keep it challenging and interesting. There's a chipping green right next to the putting green, yeah, so that you're not having chipping directly onto the putting green. And to kind of give you a point of reference, the current clubhouse is here. The Recreation Aquatic Center will come kind of almost in an L shape, and then with parking in the front of it. So as you're at the pool looking out and in the exercise room of the Recreation Center, you'll actually have a view of the putting green, the 9th green, at a lower elevation from the floor elevation. So why I'm here? We're going to get to kind of the brass tacks here. As I mentioned, when we got the cost estimate, it was much higher than we were anticipating. So we went back to Milroy Golf Systems and to their subcontractor, who's the architect for the building, as well as Dan Hickson and their other subcontractors. And we did some investigation into the cost that they were presenting on the course. So this is a breakdown of where we're at. And what you'll see in this is that we looked into the golf course renovation itself. We're looking at about 22 acres of ground disturbance on the site. And it at about $2.1 million is what they're saying is going to cost to build the golf course. It's quite a bit cheaper than park development because it's not. They do a lot of the field testing and adjustments in the field where it's not too precise. In talking to and doing research on other golf courses, we believe this cost is really in line with what we would expect. The driving range renovation, we took a look at that. There is some grading, there is irrigation, seeding, and then obviously the net system. We contacted a company that we had contacted that even Milroy had been in contact with, and found that those costs are really in line. We were looking at, had we gone with a particular netting company that we talked to, that it was about $800,000 for removal of the existing and just to put up the new netting without any grading, irrigation, or seeding. So we think that number is actually really in line with where we need to be. When we got the estimate for construction, the maintenance building itself, and here it says $188,000, we were a little shocked in that it came in at about $1.6 million. That's for a 3,000 square foot metal building with a fence around it on an asphalt. As we looked into that, we were able to identify some alternative delivery methods that would save substantial money, but we're not able to work with a contractor in order to pursue those and bring those forward. The maintenance dollars that you see here on the building itself would be, and this is kind of our proposal and we're looking for direction on, would be for this contractor to prepare the maintenance site. In other words, they will do the grading, they will stub in all utilities, which would be a sewer line that'll run down to Banyan from the site. They'll bring in water, electrical, and basically have it ready to move forward. The department would like to take time as we're moving forward with the development of the course to look at alternative methods for coming up, not only with the maintenance facility that we need, but then also to really examine our approach to maintenance. We are, just to give you some of the ideas that we have, at the north or the south end of the new aquatics facility, we will have a maintenance office and we'll have a full maintenance restroom, complete with shower and everything, that will be at the south end, really close to where this facility will be. So one of the things we're thinking is that we can use that facility for our employees that are maintaining the golf course for their in and out. The other thing is that we are one department. We are the Parks and Recreation Department, not the Parks Department and the Recreation Department. And at the north end of the building, we will have an office area as well as staff break area, availability of food and drink in our lobby there. And so to integrate our teams into using the facility and really having ownership in not just the golf course or the rec center, but all of it. So we're looking in that way. So what we're proposing is to come back to council with an adjustment to the original design build contract. That essentially would increase the design build contract at this point by about $900,000, and that would complete the golf course, the driving range renovation, and have us a place that's ready for construction for a maintenance facility. And then be able to look at both, not just the way that we deliver or build the maintenance facility, but also how we decide to operate moving out. And we've had many conversations with surrounding golf courses. So we've started that process. And really some golf courses operate their maintenance on site if they're part of a larger system, like in Portland, where they actually operate out of a very simple building, and then their staff uses adjacent buildings. Or in some cases, they look at creative ways where they can store their equipment. And in some cases, they store them in a very simple building, or even a pre-manufactured building that they put on site. So I'm confident that we'll be able to come back with something on the construction of the maintenance facility that'll be much more affordable than the 1.6 million. And to be honest with you, we've looked at some of the contracts that we've worked with this contractor has done. In a lot of cases, they have not been in charge of the construction of the maintenance facility or the clubhouse. They really concentrate on the courses and the driving ranges. So we feel confident that we'll be able to find a different delivery method and a modification of our approach that will still be able to maintain the course as a top-notch course, but maybe change how we work with our employees that are assigned to doing maintenance at the course. The other thing that I want to add to this and why we're here is timeline. This is something that came directly from, obviously we inserted something, but our contractor is worried a little bit about material pricing if we don't get moving. But more importantly to that, from an operations standpoint, it's important that we get the course seeded as soon as possible and get grass growing. With the anticipated construction schedule that we're looking at for the Aquatic and Recreation Center, if we can in fact come back, get this construction going, get the grass growing, we will have it'll be the same opening date for the golf course as well as the recreation center. They'll be ready. But if we delay and we miss a growing season on the golf course, then we'll have to delay the opening of the golf course, because the worst thing you can do on a golf course is open it up too soon and damage the turf. Then for the rest of the life of that course, you're going to be chasing after getting the turf to grow in. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. You do have in your packet and in this presentation a breakdown of the different costs. Some of the things that you'll see in there that are highlighted in red are some of the value engineering that we were able to negotiate with, the tree protection, removal of tree protection fencing, things that we're going to be doing in-house with our 1.6 dedicated FTE to the golf course. We'll be actually doing that and we'll save substantially. So with that, I'm open it up to any questions.
So, Director Randholm, if we start the seeding, this winter,
next spring. Next spring, we'll get a full season of grow in, and then, we wouldn't open the course necessarily in February when it's pouring down rain, but we wouldn't just go, oh, well, we're going to open the Lorac now, golf is going to open. If it's too wet, we're obviously not going to put people on to damage it. But by spring, we should have the grow in that we need.
Spring 2024.
Spring 2024, which coincides well with our early spring estimate for completion of the Recreation and Aquatic Center.
Okay. Well, I do know these, the numbers, came back as a big surprise. And I just want to thank you and the department, your team, for the work, the creative work that you have done to really make this important project still feasible. It is, to me, I think it's a wonderful thing that we're able to invest in a municipal golf course at a time when many people are getting out, and golf was a little bit on the, or maybe a lot on the decline, but now, I mean, people of all ages, many different types of folks getting involved in playing the game of golf and enjoying that time being outside, and I think it's wonderful that the community is able to make these, needed improvements. It's going to be a wonderful course, and I appreciate you thinking outside the box a little bit too to bring the project, within a feasible budget, but it still be a wonderful project and a great addition to the community. Okay, we have some questions, and we're going to start with Councilor Raff.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. So, one, amazing job finding efficiencies on the maintenance and office space. I think that's super smart and super thoughtful. One concern I have, and it's not really a concern, it's more of, hey, are we thinking about this? If we're not going to have a maintenance space at the golf course, we should just make sure that we have a adequate space to protect the tools and machines that we have. So, because what would be terrible is if we're leaving mowers outside all year long and they're not covered at least, and then their useful life then gets truncated. So, and then you end up spending more on trucks. So even just a roof nearby wouldn't cost very much, but at least it keeps things dry and protects them over the useful life. And then, I think I said this like maybe one of my first city council meetings, maybe almost 2 years ago, which is, God, has it been that long? 2 years? Yes. Wow. I always call it puny muni, right? I grew up in Raleigh Hills, and even in Raleigh Hills, we knew about puny muni and how great of a course it was as kids. Puny muni, like small, little bitty, because it was a little par 3 course. My wife grew up in Beaverton, and they loved puny muni when they were growing up. So we need to remember, this is not just for Lake Oswego. It's the gem of Lake Oswego, but it's the voice of Lake Oswego into every other neighborhood and community within the Portland metro area. And so we need to do it right, because it's our extension into sport, it's our extension into the youth, it's an extension into our older communities. I mean, it's like the skate park. It's like, if we're trying to be an active community, we need to have these resources. So I think I'm in full support of this. I think that we should do it at the highest level we can afford. I think, obviously, in hindsight, we shouldn't have closed it as early as we did. Can't affect that now, but for sure, in my opinion, move forward. And this is a great opportunity for Lake Oswego and our neighbors all around us. And then the final question I have is, do you have any insight on the direction the ball is going to roll in each of the greens yet? And you can just kind of give me that info ahead of time. That'd be really helpful. Like, can you have them all, like, the roll always go towards the street? That way I can remember every hole. That'd be really helpful, so.
Based on when talking to Dan Hickson, because these greens are going to average about 12,000 square feet, so about as big as our biggest current. He doesn't like multi-level, but he likes undulating greens. And the other difference is that, this was brought up a lot earlier when we were talking about the course, is that we won't have push-up greens, so they're not going to be greens that are built on top of the native soil, and then the greens are going to be pushed out. So you're not going to have domed, but they're going to be undulating with the natural terrain. So, good luck.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. So, super good job.
Thank you, Councilor Raff. Councilor Boop.
Oh. Yes, thanks. Thank you. I am not a golfer. I don't know a lot about golf, but congratulations. The only question I have is on the hike of the prices. Do you know the percentage, and is it due to inflation, or is it just it's more than inflation?
Some of it has to do with inflation. So, we did award this back in December of 2020. We did go through about that period and into probably the third to fourth quarter of 2021 where there was high volatility in all of the trades. What we've seen is we've seen a little bit of stabilization in some of the trades, but the area that we've really seen stabilization and why the price, it has increased, has to do with supply chain. So the course is going to be involved. There's about a mile of PVC pipe for the irrigation system, as well as I want to say it was something like 3,200 sprinkler heads throughout the entire complex. So when you get into that scale, there is some supply. I think also our contractor is being very cognizant. When you're moving a lot of earth, you use big machines that use a lot of fuel. And you know that fuel costs have increased. They started to go back down, and now they've spiked again. So I think that there's a bit of that in it. And then really, I think that there's some uncertainty, and that's why we're recommending having this contractor move forward with the building itself. Is I think that the contractor might have some uncertainty because they don't actually perform that. They would be hiring a subcontractor to do that. So they can't control their costs. They're going to be subject to whatever the subcontractors come in. And we know that in the building industry, when you're building a building itself, there still is some periodic volatility that's taking place in the market. So that's why we're recommending that we take that and we look at an alternative method to deliver it. And then also look at an alternative method at how we accomplish our high level of maintenance on the facility, and utilizing the other facility that's going to be there to accommodate our staff.
Okay, and one of the commentator here who on the public comment said that it was a waste that we are not having an 18 holes, and said what would be, because I've been asked those questions. I really don't know the response. I don't know anything about, if it was a soccer field, I would know what we are doing.
Yeah.
So,
and really what it comes down to is for years, going back at least the 11 years that I've been with the city, there's been looking at the golf course as to what the relative cost and benefit of it is. When we started to really research the type of course and the types of players and who we're serving, the par 3 18-hole course has a particular market. It's really good for people that are learning. It's really good for people that might be a little bit older and can't hit the ball as hard or as far. And so it's a limited market. And so financially, you also have 18 sets of greens and tee boxes that you must maintain, which is a really time from a maintenance standpoint. It takes a lot of time. That's where our maintenance crews spend the most time, is on the greens and the tee boxes. By reducing it, lengthening 3 of the 9 holes into par 4s, it opens up the market to folks that wouldn't normally come to a par 3 course, because a par 3 course is a learning course. There is a course that's shorter, easier to navigate. But having a course that has 3 par 4s, that is of a modern design with more safety zone between the fairways, really does open us up to the market of those people that maybe play championship 18-hole golf, but they don't have time to drive to another community, and they want to come and play a nine-hole round here in Lake Oswego. They live here, but most of their golf, when they go for the weekends, they go and play at a larger course. We believe that this opens up the market to more people that actually live in Lake Oswego that can come and play and have access to public golf by reducing the number of holes and adding some holes that are longer, and then modernizing the design of the course.
Wow, I had no idea that it was. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
In the driving range.
Well, the other question is, some people we were using like the pool at the school district. We can no longer use it because, you know, in our program, children should have a license to swim by 3rd, 4th grade. They should have. And we used to rent it, but we can't. So if the pool open there, can as a school rent the pool?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And the benefit of the new aquatic center design is that we're going from essentially 8 lanes in the community in the existing pool, and they're narrower lanes. We'll have 15 25-yard lanes, 12 that'll be cooler water, and then 3 that'll be warmer water. So we will be able to accommodate a lot more swim lessons and a lot more groups from within the community that want to do aquatics.
That's why I love parks, honestly. Thank you for your work and for all you do in this community. Everybody from 80, in our league, we have an 81-year-old Dwayne is playing still soccer thanks to what you guys are doing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Boone. Councilor Mans?
I guess the big question is, can he also rent the golf course?
The business.
I'm kidding.
No. The business model is going to be very similar to what we had with the 18-hole course, in that we will have times that are available for corporate retreats or for different events that can come out. Another large benefit will be to our high school teams, because now, even though our high school teams do practice occasionally on the course when it was a par 3 18-hole, this course right here, because it is 1,600 yards, actually can qualify for, they can play JV matches on this course, and with multiple tee box locations, they could even do varsity matches.
That's awesome. Well, I just wanted to make a funny comment, but actually that was some great information. Thank you. Thank you, Director, and thank the team. Your work on bringing the costs into line for this point in time was extraordinary, and the creativity that went into looking at what we could utilize on the pool side, or the wet side, I guess you'd call it, recreation side, was great. So everything that you've done has really brought this to the point where I feel super comfortable in moving this forward when we get to that point.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Mans. Councilor Windland?
Well, Director, thank you so much for all your work. I'm super excited. This is going to be a fabulous facility for Lake Oswego once everything is built and put in. I'm extremely happy about the driving range, which we haven't really talked about, because it's a revenue generator. It helps offset the cost of the golf course, and I have actually confidence that we can run that whole center with the new LORAC and everything else very efficiently, because you put things together in a very well thought out way. I guess one question I have is, on the driving range, are we considering it to be a 12-month year operation so that we have covered?
Absolutely.
And heaters and things, because
covered in hitting bays, we'll have a total of 16 covered and heated, and then we'll have 3 that are not covered, much like the configuration that it is now, but we'll be able to add 1 bay that's covered because the far west end of the range will be reconfigured, and we'll be moving the ball machine from that to a more midpoint in the range. So we'll actually be able to open up an additional bay to the west that will be covered and heated.
Right. And then the other part is, in the initial grading of both LORAC and the golf course, are there synergies there that will help? I think, does the golf course need more dirt, or does I think you should bring that up because I think
Yeah,
that's a
so because it's a site that has a lot of things going on, we're anticipating that some of the excavated soil from the LORAC, somewhere between 10 and 12,000 cubic yards, will be utilized on the golf course, in particular in leveling out and making the driving range itself. Right now, if you've been to the driving range, you hit the ball, and once it gets to about 90 yards, you go over a hill. And then if you hit it about 175, you can see where the ball hits, but in between 90 and 175, you're on behind a hill. So that'll be leveled out. And then a lot of that soil too will help us at the north end of the driving range to help us build the berm to protect from the water runoff and that, but also filling in where we take off the top and then filling in so that it's a consistent slope. So yes, we are planning on using between 10 and 15,000 cubic yards of soil from the excavation of the LORAC on the golf course.
Right. So there's just a lot of synergies between the projects. I think it's going to be a fabulous corner of Lake Oswego that is going to be well utilized and appreciated by our citizens and outlying communities that will look at this as a great place to come. Do city councilors get reservations ahead of anyone? I'm just kidding, no. One thing I will say is that I understand that there was a cost increase, and I think I said in a meeting long ago, I think the number is low. I still think we're getting a great value, and I would say that invest what we need to do to make it revenue friendly, meaning that let's do, as Councilor Rapp said, top-notch so that it really draws the people in that are willing to give us their credit card to play golf so that we can make this a positive. You know, if we spend a little bit more in capital, I think our operating expenses will be less, and there'll be hopefully no subsidy, or if there is a subsidy, it's reduced proportionally. But I'm in support of signing the contracts tomorrow if you want to. So I think we need to lock and load as soon as we can. And,
get that seed.
And then we'll be opening almost both of them near the same time then, right?
Yes, the anticipated timeline is that the Aquatic and Recreation Center and the golf course will open early spring of 2024 is what we're looking at right now.
And just so everyone knows, between using the clubhouse and then the new aquatic center, and then there's going to be some really nice places in between those two buildings for recreational activities that have beverages and things like that, even wedding receptions, all kinds of things. So I think this is really well planned out, and I appreciate all your help. And the committee that has been working on both projects, they've been a great committee in doing it. And to the golfing community, I think you're getting the message that we're in full support, and let's go. So they'll probably even help water the grass to make it grow a little faster.
Thank you, Councilor Woodland. Director Anderholm, have you two, in the design, in the Sixton design, kind of contemplated some of these agronomics of the course to, obviously the renewed design and everything will, make it a more attractive course to play, but just in terms of the maintenance costs, have we designed this in a way to reduce the annual maintenance costs and improve the condition of the turf and reduce kind of those expenses?
Yes, yeah. So in the proposal and in the packet that you got, it did highlight, we are removing some trees from the course. We're maintaining a lot of the Doug fir and native species stands that are on the course, but we are removing a lot of the intentional trees that were planted back in 1966, 67, when the course was developed at very, very narrow spacing along the fairways because you didn't have the safety space. So the design standard then was to plant things to give you safety. So we are reducing that, and that was a major component that Dan brought into the design in his analysis of the tree canopy and how it's grown over the years to where all of our fairways, a lot of our greens, and a lot of our tee boxes went from being in the sun to being almost completely in the shade for most of the day, which is hard to grow grass, especially grass that's being used as a golf course. So it will be a more open course. It'll be easier to maintain. And then I do want to note too, you know, one of our main maintenance costs is water. We're between $120,000 to $150,000 a year we pay for water on the course. But it is essentially the original system that was installed in the late 1960s that is still in operation. You know, we've done our best to keep it going, but the irrigation technology has become so much more efficient, even in the last 10 to 15 years. But over the last 50 years, we anticipate that we're going to see a great efficiency. And it's going to be designed to put water where we want water, which is on our fairways, our greens, and our tee boxes.
That's great. I see that in addition to the removal of the trees, we are planting 134 trees.
We
So
are.
how are those kind of being?
So as I mentioned in the presentation, at the north end of the range, we've had extensive conversations with those neighbors that are concerned about the placement of the first green, as well as the extension of the driving range. So we are doing some mitigation there, but throughout the course, there will be new pockets of trees in the right place, so that it's not in an area that's going to shade out the most important parts of the course as they mature.
That is great. And when it comes to the students playing, as I understand it, when, of course, the Puny Muni is where our wonderful friends of the school district have made the women's golf team practice while the men practice at the country club. So when we have this new course, let's make sure that the women's golf team is first in line to continue using the course that they have practiced on. Yes. Okay, so it seems like we have agreement on the council to move forward with this revised proposal. And
18th.
Okay. And
Okay.
it'll be,
Yeah, so I'll bring this back on the 18th with it'll be an amendment to the original contract.
wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much, Director Anderholm.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Look forward to moving this forward. Okay. So next, moving on to council business, we have adoption of the findings, conclusions, and order for AP 22-03 and AP 22-04. And I'll ask Mr. Boone to review these items for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council's public hearing for AP 2203 at 529 8th Avenue, which is the south property for tree permit 160, was held on September 6th, and the council concluded its deliberation on September 20. The vote was to tentatively approve the tree removal permit with conditions and deny the appeal. Draft findings have been submitted to you for your consideration to formally approve the tree permit. At the last meeting, a general declaration of ex parte communication was made for 3 emails. Councilor Mabuk declared a bias and recused himself from participation, and no member declared any financial conflict of interest. So since the September 20 meeting, does any member need to declare any additional ex parte communication, bias, or financial conflict of interest?
No.
Hearing none. Councilor McBoot, since you've declared your bias, you will not be participating in the vote on this matter. With that, Mr. Mayor, you may proceed with deliberation and consideration of the presentation of presented findings, conclusions, and order.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boone. So we will consider first here adoption of our findings, conclusion order for AP 22-03. Is there a motion to adopt?
Can I make a motion to adopt the findings, conclusions, and order for AP 2203?
Moved by Councilor Raff, second by Councilor Wendland. Is there any discussion? All right. No? Okay, Ms. Linder, well, I'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Buck?
Yes?
Councilors Wynn?
Yes.
Burdick?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yeah, yes, sorry.
At the original motion to tentatively approve, Councilors Nguyen and Verdict voted to oppose. So that would be consistent to oppose the adoption of these findings.
Okay, so we'll oppose.
I will remain consistent and oppose.
Me too.
Rapp?
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
and Winland.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-2.
Thank you. And Councilman Boop abstaining. Okay, we will now move to the AP 22-04. Is there a motion to adopt the findings conclusion order?
Move to adopt findings, conclusions in order for AP 2204.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, well, yes, Mr. Boop.
The council held a public hearing and completed its deliberations at the prior meeting on September 6, and then tentatively directed me to prepare written findings to approve the application and deny the appeal with conditions. Councilor Winland, you were not present at that prior meeting. Have you reviewed the written record and the testimony of the applicant and interested persons by reviewing the video record of the proceedings and the written material?
I have.
Do you need to declare any bias or financial conflict of interest?
No.
Okay. A general declaration of ex parte communication is declared on behalf of all the councilors for the following, the copies of which the material is at the table at the sign-in desk. Unfortunately, the IT filter did not capture those emails before distribution, and that is Cynthia Colbert, September 9, Mark and Leah Pullman, September 8, and Mark Pullman, September 8. Each counselor affirms that they do not consider any ex parte communication in their deliberation unless they individually declare that communication. Now, since the September 6th meeting, does any counselor need to individually declare any ex parte communication or bias?
No.
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 And Counselor McBoop, do you need to declare a bias on this? You are declaring a bias?
I put it against it when we put it, but yeah, I'll
Okay.
have the same thing.
All right. And does any counselor need to declare a financial conflict of interest?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Is there, okay. Counselor's verdict, and when you voted tentatively to approve these findings on this application, but were opposed in the companion case, I'll just point that out before the mayor continues with his deliberation and calls for your vote.
Okay. All right, is there any further discussion? Yeah, Councilor Verdict.
I will be changing my vote to a no because I realized I was basing my decision on the condition of the tree, which is not a condition that can be considered. So I will be voting no.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Verdict. Okay, no further discussion. Ms. Linder, please call the roll.
Mayor Buck,
Yes.
Councilors Wynn,
Yes.
Burdick,
No.
Raff,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Winland.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-1.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Burke. Okay, and we are now moving on to information from council. If anyone has anything, please let me know. We have a couple things. First, Indigenous Peoples Day is the city of Lake Oswego. We had it on the consent agenda, is proud to be a sponsor in this event, which is taking place on October 9th at Clackamas Community College from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It should be a great cultural event, and there is information on the county's website. The Clackamas County is kind of heading it up with other community groups. We also have one issue that came up in some of the public comment earlier is around all these golf topics today. So we had a couple members ask about the tree removal at the Oswego Lake Country Club. And, there's, I think we see there's some confusion, in the community that this is some expedited process that is being afforded to the country club. Obviously, for all of us, the only reason we have learned about this tree removal is via some members of the community reaching out and letting us know that it has taken place. Obviously, this is not something that's been before us. But essentially, as we've learned, the country club is using our forest management permit to remove trees, and of course that permit is a permit unlike other permits that we're used to. That doesn't allow for public comment, it doesn't allow for mitigation, and it essentially forecloses on the city's ability to inquire into any kind of safety related issues and other concerns we may have on a golf course removal that may not necessarily apply to a true wooded forest of a much higher canopy density, which is really what the forest management permit is about. when we adopted that in 2015. My recollection is that we were contemplating removal of trees on, we were not contemplating the removal of trees on kind of active use areas like a golf course, or to allow removal for development or view enhancement or to reduce cleanup, and concerns that are either strictly economic or related to course enhancement, which doesn't necessarily mean that we would want to deny tree removals. Of course, we ourselves have to manage our own golf course, but even as we've seen here, I mean, we, in our municipal golf course complete redesign, coincidentally by the same person who's doing the country club work, we are removing trees, but we are also mitigating those trees because we went through a regular type 2 process. So there are just some inconsistencies in how.
So let me just say this application's in process, and so I actually really reluctant to have council members. Well, no, it's not so much that, because I don't think there's an appeal process, but I do think it's a challenge when council members, where we have an existing set of code, could be accused of intervening in the permit process. But I will also say, having had a chance to talk about this matter with staff, I think that the intention of our code was to help property owners manage forested tracts as forested tracts, not convert forested tracts to other uses. And so I believe that we're going to have some staff level conversations with the folks at the country club about the policy intentions of the code.
Right.
Then, depending on the outcome of those conversations, we'll be back to visit with council. But I do think it's this is just city managers getting anxious. It's anxiety producing when we do have an application in process to have the potential for a determination about whether, from the elected body, whether the application meets the code or not before staff have done their work with the applicant to reach a conclusion. So I ask you all to be patient. Also did take down the names of the folks who testify. Actually, just Mr. I can't pronounce his last name, Randy. I will have staff follow up with him to have a conversation about what the process is, what the process isn't, and where we are in the process. Because I also think we all should understand that there hasn't been any permit issued. There's just been a discussion about it. The country club does own the 18 acres of forested lands. So let us also just recognize that of their 60-some acres, they have a lot of forest. And so we do need to work collaboratively with them to make sure they're managing and maintaining their forested lands.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's great to hear
Yeah.
that it's still in process. It's a difficult situation for us to be
I hear your passion, Your Honor, and I know that you share that with other folks in the community. But as I say, I think at this point, we've got, just like we did with the other permit applications, we have to administer the code that we have as opposed to administering the code that we didn't have. I'll let you know how it turns out, and then we can have a conversation about whether you want to change the code or not.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Councilor Windland.
Well, talking about trees, I just have some great news about trees. We had a wonderful presentation I wanted to tell you from the Parks and Rec meeting that we last had. There was a presentation on the tree inventory, and I encourage all of you, there is a link to it. If you don't have it, let me know. But to look at that, next to Durham, which is a very small little speck on the radar, we have the most tree coverage of any city in Oregon in metro areas. And in some cases, by a long shot, we're almost 50% tree coverage. And I think that is, for those of you who grew up in Lake Oswego, there is a lot of barren land, and there's a lot of trees that were planted long ago that have helped make this canopy grow. There's also been a lot of people that have been involved in it over the years that have helped make this a positive outcome. But we did increase from 2015 to 2019 our tree coverage. And so a lot of the policies and a lot of the things that have been happening have been working. And yes, there has been an ice storm, and yes, there's been some development and so on, but overall we are growing, and our little trees have gotten bigger, and our medium-sized trees have gotten bigger, and our big trees have gotten even bigger. And so let the forestation continue to grow, and I think it's a good, good study to look at and put things into perspective. And I'm looking forward to, eventually, I think we'll have a presentation to council about it, but
Yeah, it's coming.
yeah, it's coming. But anyway, great meeting, and I thought it was wonderful information, and it's available for your perusal. So
Great.
that's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilor Group.
Yeah, no, I just think we did a great meeting, but about the trees and, you know, about whoever, the golf club, anybody who owns forest, you know, in their property, that we can have the best canopy, all that. If we continue to take them out, we won't have any more trees. It's not about having the best canopy in Oregon or anywhere. And I doubt even that in Oregon. But like you say, people mitigate, they build, and I remember the trees I planted in Portland 20 years ago. They're big trees, but 20, 200 years tree, 150 years tree, we should not allow to cut them like blanket. Oh, it's our golf course, we are cutting 76 trees. That's not normal, and we should protest and oppose that. And which means I agree with the city manager that we need to change the tree code. Because if some people...
Is that what you said?
No, me. I think we have to revisit the tree code, because if people in their home to cut a tree, they go, but if it's some people, it's like if you are an individual, you cannot cut a tree. If you are some person, you can cut a tree. So we should revisit the code. There are some problems out there. And so I don't want to get into the golf course, but I heard the rumor, and I told people, and I talked to people from the golf course, like the gentleman here, most of them against it, and we should not allow that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Boop. I forgot two more things quickly. The TriMet has come out with a service, well, they call them enhancements in some areas, system changes. And so the city manager and I are inviting TriMet to come and talk to us about what these changes mean for Lake Oswego. There are a couple, they're both some removal of two of our lines, but also enhancements of other lines. So we're trying to figure out what that means for riders going from point A to point B. And there is also in October, I mentioned the Indigenous Peoples Day, also LO for Love in partnership with the AAPI Club at Lake Ridge High School is putting on a Diwali celebration on October 23rd. That's a Sunday from 2 to 5, which is the first. There's a tree summit as well. Yeah, there's a lot of events. I can't list them all, but I will mention the Diwali. It's an Indian holiday. Yeah, it's the first time, which is great that they're doing that. I think.
On the TriMet thing, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can we get them to maybe propose something that would be for Lake Oswego? So that, does it always have to be everything goes down to Portland? Because we pay our taxes as a city, and I really think if we had a bus that went around in Lake Oswego, that
circulator
would cut down.
The comment period's open. The comment period's open, so let us figure out if we can.
I think there is also something that TriMet is doing through that, those business recovery centers. I heard from the chamber on just this exact thing. Like if
people are at home.
There are other communities that have circulators. So I think to the mayor's point, their comment period's open in the month of October. Let us come. Not only do we need a presentation from them, let us come and suggest that you make some comments back to them. I think, as the mayor's heard me say, some folks are losers, like anyone who rides the bus number 36 around South Shore.
Right.
However, that bus has like the lowest ridership in the entire system. So you understand why TriMet's doing that. But we have other parts of the community that are going to be big winners. Like we'll have 7-day service on Boone's Ferry, which we've never had. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to have a measured reaction to what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
right, but I guess what I'm saying is I think TriMet has to start thinking outside of the box to have a transit system that just serves a centralized group that doesn't exist anymore.
I think they're doing that in other parts of the region, so I think that your comments to them will be consistent with what they're doing in Hillsborough and Gresham, where they're doing a lot more north-south, or they're trying to connect other employment areas as opposed to the hub and spokes model, which is what they have now.
Well, and I saw a bus yesterday morning going down Iron Mountain Boulevard, and we think it was lost.
It must have been lost. There is no route.
Had to
on
have been
Iron
lost
Mountain.
because she pulled over twice, and I wanted to go knock on her door and say, can I help you find your route? But it was kind of dark still, and I'm thinking, I could be run over, it could be a new driver, so I just let her figure out her thing. But that was the first time I've seen a TriMet bus on Iron Mountain.
When I first moved to Lake Oswego, I got lost too, so.
Okay. Any reports from officers?
I just have two things. First of all, I want y'all to know that the library is going to be closed for an in-service day on October 10th. And so it's normally a day we would be open, but they once a year do a big in-service training, and that will be the day. The second thing, I just want to say some stuff about Charity Taylor, because I think you all know her last days here. She's started here at the city as a Kincaid intern. And became a management analyst at the conclusion of her internship. And one of the things I like about the organization is that we do have this internship opportunity, and we actually often find places in the organization for the folks who've interned with us, and Charity was certainly a superstar in that program. But since she's been here, I just want to say some of the stuff she's worked on. She worked on the Lusher Farm Master Plan, which was, I think, a really challenging project with a lot of folks who feel passionately. She staffed the DEI task force. I know Councilor Maboop was on that group, but really taking us into space in 2020. You might remember all the things that were happening around DEI in 2020. She staffed the community dialogue on policing in 2021, following up on that work, and with such diplomacy, with such tact, with such care. And then she staffed the youth council after Jenny Slepian left, and they love her. I don't know how, I mean, the youth love Jamie Inglis too, so Jamie should still feel good, but they are going to be sad when they find out Charity's going. And then, of course, she recently did the ARPA grants. I just want to say thank you to Charity for all the work, and best of luck to you at United Way, but you've staffed some really high-profile projects in your time here that have really made us a different and better organization.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. We don't get I mean, there's hundreds of people working for the city, and the city council gets to interact with just a very few select of them, and we wish that we were able to interact with more because so many of them are just as wonderful as Charity has been, and it's been good fortune that us members of the council have been able to work closely with her over these years, and thank you for those nice remarks. And she's done well under your leadership as well, and Ms. Phelan. And I know it's a big loss for the office, so, but we were sure she's going to do good things. So, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Martha, for recognizing that. You also, only the great people recognize great people. You and Megan.
I'm still
also.
mad at her, so I'm going to not talk anymore.
Me too, yeah.
Right, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. Yay. Good job. Great meeting.